Welcome to the DTS version 4 video series. This webinar is an introduction to TQL version 4.1. The objective of this webinar is to introduce you to the new features in version 4.1 of the terminology query language. Version 4.1 continues the evolution of TQL with new query elements. The goal of these features is to enable more sophisticated data export and processing. In addition to the structural query enhancements, 4.1 adds new Tql attributes and a query header. The most obvious TQL query change is the addition of a new query header that provides format and datetime stamp information. The new header is created whenever a query is saved. I'll open a query and now do a save. The header is a TQL comment line added at the top of the query. It contains the TQL version, username, and saved date time. The header line is always added to saved queries, but display of the header line is optional. To not display the header, simply uncheck Show Header Line in the File Preferences menu item. The preference value is saved in the TQL configuration file. As shown here, TQL has previously only allowed one statement to be executed as part of a collection query. TQL 4.1 adds statement blocks to expand the number of actions that can be taken on collection concepts or terms. This query shows the use of a statement block in a collection. The statement block is the three statements enclosed in braces. The block is an intrinsic part of the collection statement. The use of blocks is always optional. In this example, the statements in the block are executed once in the order presented for each concept in the specified collection. The concepts in test whose names begin with X. Generally, the same result could be achieved by three separate collection statements without blocks, but the use of the block is more efficient, and there are examples where the side effects of a statement make blocks more natural and clear. This is especially true when conditional statements are used. We'll discuss conditional statements next. Note that not all TQL statements can be used in a statement block. The TQL version 4.1 release notes and TQL editor user guide contain further information on statement usage options. Version 4.1 also adds three new statement types, the if, else, and else if statements, together called conditional statements. Most of you are probably already familiar with the semantics of these statements. In this example, the print statement is only executed if the concept name begins with an N. Technically, the argument of an if statement is a predicate element. This predicate, concept name equals N star, is very similar to a selector. It has a left-hand side that is an attribute, an operator, and usually a right-hand side that is an expression. The predicate is evaluated for each concept or term in the enclosing collection. If the predicate evaluates to true, the subsequent statement or statement block is executed. If the predicate evaluates to false, the following statement is ignored. In the above query, the equivalent result could be accomplished with a selector. In fact, the use of a selector is more efficient than a conditional, since the conditional predicate must be evaluated for every object in the collection. Once a collection has been created, however, the if statement can provide new functionality not previously available in TQL. Predicate syntax is different from selectors in two important ways. First, the left-hand side of a predicate can be a user or Tql variable, so the values of these variables can be tested. Here is an example of using the value of a user variable to determine the action performed in a block. This construct could make it easy to move between the two export types by simply changing the value of the user variable. The second difference is that the right-hand side expression can be contextual. It can contain a DTS or Tql attribute that is evaluated in the context of the collection. Here is an example of the latter capability. In this query, which cannot be performed using selectors, we can test whether a concept's code value is the same as its code and source property. As you would expect, the else and else if statements are complementary to if. These statements make it easier to perform multiple or chained tests on conditionals. Here's an example. Here we have created a chain of conditionals to print different messages for different types of concepts. Note that the else if and else statements must immediately follow an if or another else if statement. You may have already noticed some additions to the print statement. In version 4.1, the log and print statements use the same argument processor as export, so contextual, encoded, and displaying forms can be used, when inside a collection statement, of course. The only difference between print and export is that because of the availability of the sorted by modifier, export cannot be used in a block, and print does not produce an automatic header line. The last statement addition is to the set statement. This statement now allows mixing of attribute and variable arguments in any context. Both argument types could not be used in the same statement in earlier versions of TQL. The final new feature in version 4.1 is new Tql attributes. The name, code, ID, and status attributes, as shown here, are simply shorthand for concept name and term name, concept code and term code, concept ID and term ID, and concept status and term status. TQL is able to distinguish between the concept term interpretations of these variables based on the enclosing statement context or expression context. This automatic interpretation was already present in the namespace Tql attribute. The namespace Tql variable can now be used in collection selectors. This variable could be useful when processing multi-namespace contexts such as subsets or consets. Similar filtering could also be performed using the new if statement. The property, role, and association attributes have been added to support access to all instances of these attribute types in export, print, and log statements. Property, role, and association can be used in a similar manner to the synonym attribute. As you can see, in this example, only the value of the properties have been exported. To clarify output, the type modifier is available to access the type name of any synonym, property, role, or association instance. The value modifier is also available, which returns the string value of the attribute. I'll modify this query to include these modifiers. we see that now we have displayed both the type name of the property and the value of the property. This provides a more complete description of the requested attributes. Finally, TQL supports escaping the caret so that this character can appear in attribute literals. All the features outlined here are described in the TQL version 4.1 release notes. Thanks for watching. See our other videos on the Apelon YouTube channel or visit www.apelondts.org for everything DTS.